It is so beautiful. It is so alive. And that's the key to, in my personal opinion, to overcoming a lot of medical issues is figuring out how to bring this life and even light into the body, because that's what I believe hydrogen actually is. If you look at the light of the world, which comes from the sun, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the sun is made up of pretty much entirely hydrogen. And some people may argue and say, well, it's also partially made of helium. What do you think helium is? Helium is actually a form of hydrogen. So it's really pretty unbelievable and absolutely remarkable. I'm very much in love with both hydrogen and water and what it can do for our physical health, our mental health, athletics. I also believe it can change the world of agriculture and even medicine.
Welcome to the Radical Health Rebel podcast. I'm your host, Lee Brandon. This work started for me several decades ago when I started to see the impact I could make on people, helping them to identify the root cause of their health problems that no doctor could figure out, including serious back, knee, shoulder and neck injuries, acne and eczema issues, severe gut health problems, even helping couples get pregnant after several IVF treatments had failed. And it really moves me to be able to help people in this way. And that is why I do what I do and why we have this show. In this episode of the Radical Health Rebel podcast, I sit down with Greg, the Hydrogen Man, to explore the incredible healing potential of hydrogen therapy and hydrogen water. Greg shares his deep knowledge and personal experience with molecular hydrogen and how it can profoundly impact gut health, skin conditions, and autoimmune issues. We discuss how hydrogen works at the cellular level to reduce inflammation, support the microbiome, and promote overall healing. Greg breaks down the science in an easy-to-understand way and explains why hydrogen could be one of the most underrated tools in natural health. If you're struggling with digestive problems, chronic skin issues, or autoimmune conditions, or simply looking to upgrade your health, this is an episode you won't want to miss. Stay tuned to discover how something as simple as hydrogen water could be the key to optimum health. So Greg, aka Hydrogen Man, welcome to the Radical Health Rebel podcast. Thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. And to kick things off, would you share a little bit about your own health history, your academic and professional background, and what led you to get involved with molecular hydrogen therapy?
Well, the journey really started like a lot of things in life very unexpectedly. I ended up getting really sick. And that's really where the journey began because my medical issues were, like a lot of people, I always thought that it would never happen to me. And boy, did it happen to me. It was so bad. And what was a little ironic is I did work, I worked in the medical field for just a little over 2 decades. So I very much understood Western medicine. I worked with so many different doctors and specialists. So I really, really understood the field quite well. And then when I got sick, I actually got really kind of freaked out because I knew that there probably weren't going to be able to help me in Western medicine. As most people who have experienced Western medicine probably know, usually they try to throw pain pills at you or throw some type of pharmaceutical at you, not really resolving the issue. I should say before I keep going, I'm not going to give any medical advice today. I'm not making any medical claims, and everything today is my opinion. And I'm not going to make any claims for or against any product or products. I got to throw that out there. There's been a lot of controversy about this. So anyway, after I got ill, that's when things really changed for me. And my issues were so severe that it reached a point where I couldn't even walk. So I was in extreme pain. That was really difficult to go through. I also had tumors in my body. I also had a heart condition that they told me that was going to end my life. And in fact, technically right now, I shouldn't even be alive right now. So I've already, quote unquote, beat the system as far as what the medical establishment was telling me. I had a lot of gut issues. So a lot of issues also with my immune system, as most of our immune system comes from our gut. And then my liver and my kidneys were not optimal, but they were still working and everything. And so just a lot of different issues, quote unquote. And actually I did have some issues where it affected my skin because I couldn't eat certain foods. I really had bad acne all the time. So I had really a lot of issues in regards to that too. But the worst one was just the pain. I literally couldn't, it reached a point trying to think of an example here. I mean, it literally reached the point where if I grabbed the remote control and I was trying to change the channel on television, I couldn't do it. I had so much pain that I couldn't even do that. And so it was, honestly, it was really depressing. Um, I really didn't feel like I could live like that because when you can't stand up and walk, I mean, you literally can't get up and go to the bathroom. You can't go grocery shopping. You can't work. It ruined my life,
Mm.
sadly. And so I needed to find a solution to these things that I was going through. And again, Western medicine didn't really have solutions for me. And so I started reading a lot of different, first I started watching podcasts actually, trying to
Mhm.
just kind of get a little bit of advice. And I tried a ton of supplements. I tried a ton of different health machines. Of course, I saw a ton of different doctors. I saw a lot of naturopaths. I tried a bunch of different diets. I mean, I tried so many things throughout the years. And honestly, I was just getting worse. And so things were not getting better. And then I stumbled upon what I decided to do. I got really frustrated because a lot of different health practitioners and even podcasters, everybody had a difference of opinion. So you're having one person telling you to, let's say, eat nothing but meat. And then you have another person says, no, you should only eat raw vegetables. And then you have somebody say, no, you should drink this water. No, the pH, drink alkaline water. And everybody was disagreeing. And that became very frustrating because I was very much willing to walk down the path that I needed to go down to ultimately transform my health. But I kept trying all these different things and they really weren't working. I mean, almost zero benefit.
Mm.
And so I decided to kind of take it upon myself. And I kind of felt like my life was on the line here. I mean, it really actually was on the line. And so I really had to read more scientific data and really try to understand the body and really just try to learn I basically had to create my own path, is what really ended up happening. And I stumbled upon, molecular hydrogen. And when I read the literally the very first studies ever come out on it, I thought it was a hoax. It was really too amazing. It was too good to be true. And it was kind of blowing my mind. But at the same time, I was being skeptical because I'm a very skeptical person. There's too many things out there that I've already realized throughout my life now that are just scams. And so I'm very cautious. And I didn't try the hydrogen stuff right away. There was so much to learn. And it went on for almost 4 years like that. And I was so desperate. My condition was just getting worse that I became so desperate that I was like, okay, I want to try this hydrogen stuff. The problem is how do you go to the corner drugstore and say, hey, can you give me some medical grade molecular hydrogen? It just wasn't in the cards. I mean, you weren't
Mhm.
going to be able to find anything like that. So then I had to learn a lot about the first journey was learning about like the science part of it and what it can do for your health, what it can do. It actually can do a lot of things on many fronts. Yes, for health, but also for like athletes and so many other things really. But I had to pivot because eventually I had to learn, how many milligrams of this stuff do I need to ingest? How exactly do I get this stuff in my body? Then it took another turn that there's different ways to make hydrogen. So I'm like, okay, which way is the way that they're medically doing it? And Japan was at the absolute forefront of all this. Nobody knew anything about it. The Japanese they're trailblazers. I mean, they really do some incredible stuff. And I learned so much from the Japanese. And then I had to learn about the equipment that it would really take to make hydrogen properly. Because again, I don't make any claims or anything, but I have found, like, for example, I could give you an example. Have you ever seen these little bottles?
Mhm.
So these are these little hydrogen bottles. I don't use these, nor do I recommend them. And I do consults now because the results that have come from these protocols that I created are literally so outrageous. Like they're hard to believe. They're still hard for me to believe what these protocols that I created can do for people's health. I just released a video like 5 days ago about a 93-year-old woman who had like 4 or 5 heart conditions, high blood pressure, and diabetes. And she's 93, and her doctor was pretty much saying, you're done. Like, there's nothing really we can do for you. You're old. You have a lot of medical problems. She did my protocol because one of her relatives found out about me and they're like, can you just please help? And so she ended up doing the protocol. And what ended up happening is all those conditions went away. I mean, I literally have, her medical records. I released them on my video. I have pictures of her. I even put emails that I got from her family with her testimonial. And that's just one of tons of examples. I've been doing this now for many years. And I've just been creating my own, literally my own protocols. Like they're unlike anybody else's. They're all mine. I created them my way. But like these little bottles, in my opinion, they're kind of a joke. I mean, in my opinion, you're not going to get the results from something like this. But it's become such a fad now, and obviously these are made in China. They use plated metals. The membranes they use, I don't like them because I've seen lab tests of what's in them. So, and then it directly electrolyzes water. It's just not the optimal way. So I had to learn a lot about engineering, which is really interesting because I really didn't like it.
Mm,
But my back was against the wall. So I had to learn everything. I had to learn
mm,
everything about hydrogen. I actually became a water specialist too. Water is a huge part of my protocols. If people only knew, here, I got an example right here, actually. If people only knew, this is a third party lab test. And if people only knew what's in their water, they would realize one of the most powerful things is most likely making you sick, again, in my opinion. So, like, if I were to just give you an example, all these things are in water, and there's pages of them and
mm,
pages of this stuff. And these are very toxic to the body. And everybody thinks, well, I filter my water. Well, guess what? Your water filter, almost all water filters out there are not going to remove everything out of the water. And there's a lot of stuff that needs to be
mm,
removed, including pharmaceuticals. This will shock you too. I mean, I was shocked when I was learning about all this stuff. Um, are you aware that there's typically radioactive contaminants in water?
mm,
I mean, most people don't know that there's radioactive contaminants and they wonder why they're getting sick. And that's just one thing. I mean, did you know that there's bacteria, parasites, viruses in water? And the big question is, how do we truly clean our water? And of course, I learned the three main ways that I learned how to do what I do now is I observe nature, I read a lot of different scientific studies, and then I look at a lot of lab tests and lab reports. And I just put everything together. And then I use I call it common sense, but I did come from an educational background. So I very much self-educated myself. I basically put myself through school and created a new pathway because I had to create it. There was no path like this one. And hydrogen is just a massive part of it because it doesn't seem to work without it. So
mm,
hydrogen is a huge piece to this puzzle when dealing with health and these crazy health issues. So, I mean, we're talking, if you wanted some examples, I mean, we're talking about even my family are examples. People like my father was a good example, but people with blood pressure issues, cholesterol issues, arthritis, diabetes, a lot of eye issues, glaucoma, cataract issues, torn retinas, macular degeneration, which would make you go blind and is supposed to be unfixable. I've already had people who I've done consults with where their macular degeneration goes away. Alzheimer's, dementia. I have some really wild videos about that, like literally testimonials with pictures also from a woman who had it really bad. Her daughter was the one who contacted me. I've worked with people with TBI, traumatic brain injury. That I've actually had amazing success with that too. There's actually an interview because the product that I like to use, which is the best. That's the only reason I use it, and it actually works. There's a difference between garbage products and like a true hydrogen generator. And this one's actually was developed by not only the Japanese, it was developed by the number one hydrogen company in the world. I didn't even know them at the time. I had to obviously do a lot of research, and I stumbled upon them. And literally, that machine is that company. The company is called Holy Hydrogen. If people want to look at their website. But basically, they also do some videos of a lot of their customers. And one of the ones that I worked with was, well, actually more than one, but was the lady with TBI. We're talking about a woman who literally couldn't remember almost anything every 10 to 20, maybe 30 seconds. So she had a lot of brain issues too. And of course, all this eventually affects your skin, your gut health, and all sorts of different things within the human body. So it's pretty remarkable if you really figure out how the body really works and the things that it can actually do if given the right things.
mm. Yeah, that's really, really interesting. Just to go back a little bit. Um, so what age were you when you started to get unwell?
Well, I started having issues as early as my 20s,
Right.
but it was one of those things where I tried to ignore, the
Hmm.
issues, and then they were getting worse, later into my 20s, and then they got even worse into my 30s, and that's when I really started,
Mm.
the issues really started ramping,
And
to the point where I couldn't walk.
And what were you doing kind of work-wise during your 20s?
Oh, I was working at a gym back then,
Okay.
ironically.
Yeah. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
And, you mentioned you had tumors in your body, you had pain, you had gut issues, you said you had acne. Was there any other things that you were kind of like, officially diagnosed with by the medical industry?
I mean, they didn't really know what was going on. Again, the way that they work is, take some blood samples, they take some urine samples. They didn't even spot the tumors. I'm the one who found the tumors. And because I was having pain and I kept trying to tell them. And then eventually, they did a biopsy and they found that they were what's called I had two different types of tumors, but one was called neurofibromas. So they're basically tumors in your nerves. So that was extremely painful. And then I had something called fibrolipomas, which were literally fibrous lipomas, and they were again getting into my nerves, so causing a lot of pain. But I
Mm,
just had a lot of inflammation too. So I did have autoimmune issues. Um, that was creating a lot of the inflammation also in my body, and there just was no solution,
mm,
that they had to offer.
yeah, yeah, gotcha. So, what age were you when you kind of thought to yourself, right, I need to take care of myself now? Like the medical community is not it's not getting results. What kind of age were you when you kind of thought, right, I'm taking control of this situation?
I don't remember the exact age or anything. All I remember, like the biggest thing that I remember was I was trying all these things. Again, different diets, different machines, different supplements, everything that a lot of people recommend out there. And I was literally on the couch and I couldn't do anything because I couldn't walk. So I was in a lot of pain. So I'm just laying on the couch and I tried to grab the remote. I was actually going to try to play a video game and I couldn't because my joints hurt so bad. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to watch TV. And then I couldn't work the remote. And man, I broke down. I
Mm,
was because I used to be really athletic,
mm,
and I just had a really I just started crying and I had I've had a lot of low points,
mm,
throughout this journey. And then I just remember kind of I made a prayer actually, when we're at really low points. I actually prayed. I just said, God, if you can just please, I didn't ask for a miracle. I just said, if you can please help me to understand my body or the condition or what the body needs in order to get better. Just guide me because it was very hard for me to read a lot of scientific papers. I mean, they're so
mm,
boring and they're so long and tedious. And I really didn't enjoy it. I didn't really want to be like a doctor or anything. And ironically, as I was, you know, praying for this, one of the things I remember saying, I said, look, I promise that if you can just help me and maybe get me interested, because one thing about me that obviously nobody knows is that when I really get interested in something, this probably goes for a lot of people. For me, I have to be interested in my heart. Like it's got to be in my heart in order for me to really be interested in a subject. And once I'm interested like that from my heart, then I can do things that I know are pretty remarkable. I'm really good at figuring things out that I'm really interested in. I'm quite, I'm not gifted in many areas, but I'm gifted in that area.
mm,
But I just didn't have it in my heart. But my condition got so bad. I was kind of praying, like, put it in my heart, help me out here, guide me a little bit. And I think it was literally within a week or two. I don't know what it was, but something did change in me. And I had made this kind of promise. We probably do things like this when we're in a low point, but I just said, God, if you guide me and if you help me, and I figure this out, I promise that I will help others. I will share the knowledge. I will share only what has actually helped me. And I was really able to create a very simple protocol, and I've kept my word. Throughout the years now that I've been doing this, there's been a lot of like companies and, they want me to promote supplements and machines and go into business. I've been offered a lot and I've turned it all down because I'm not about just selling stuff. I'm
mm,
not about promoting a million supplements. In fact, I'm not even really fond of supplements. A lot of people may not like that, but I've seen a lot of lab reports and I've even learned because companies who have approached me, I've had conversations with them only to find out that they cut corners on their products because they're too expensive to make properly, and they want to make all these profit. And everything that I learned is that the majority, and I'm not saying every company, but the majority of companies out there, in my personal opinion, from everything that I've seen and experienced, they're not trying to give the customer the best stuff. Everybody's trying to make a buck. And that's why I was so grateful for what the Japanese did, because the hydrogen generator that really saved my life and changed my life, the guy who created it, his story is so incredible, actually. He actually created the device for his daughter. And it was such a sad story because she was born with ALS, otherwise known as Lou Gehrig's disease. And he knew about hydrogen, he'd been hearing about it, but there was no machine that you could use at home that made like crazy high quality, hydrogen that would be clean, that would be effective, that's been lab tested and certified. Like nobody really does that. And so he set out to do that. And in Japan, I think only in Japan could have happened because he needed help from big industries. So he needed help. He literally got help from like Toyota and Yamaha and G-Shock and some really prestigious metal company. The science of metals are so important when it comes to hydrogen. So he went out of his way to create this, and he was even advised to have a lot of it done in China to save money again. And he said, no, it's all going to be done in Japan. It's all going to be done in-house. I don't even care how expensive this thing gets. I want it to be the best in the world. And that's what he did. And he did it very creatively and was actually made it extremely reasonably priced. Like to make this type of hydrogen, back when I was trying to figure all this out, we're talking hundreds of thousands, if not into the millions of dollars. And he was able to accomplish, obviously there was a lot of millions of dollars of investment, but he was able to do the whole thing. I think the machine's somewhere in the neighborhood of $2,500, which is just unbelievable. And it dissolves really high quality hydrogen gas with the best nanobubbles and nanotechnology in the world. And then it makes a hydrogen gas also that you can inhale. And yeah, he created this beautiful thing, and I'm forever grateful for that. And I just think the world needs to know, because it is a game changer. I mean, it's a true game changer for health. Not to mention, by the way, that this happens in nature. So that's one of the things that I do is I observe nature to find answers. And have you ever heard of a place called Lourdes, France?
Yeah.
So the healing waters of Lourdes, everybody had trouble figuring out what was so magical about that water. It was actually the Japanese. They ended up figuring it out that water has high levels of molecular hydrogen, which, by the way, is just a gas. And that's how this whole thing really got rolling. The Japanese started doing studies on mice, and the studies are unbelievable. I have footage, I've seen them. So many scientific studies. We're not talking like 10 studies or 20 or 50. I believe at this point there's over 2,000 studies, and it is something that is being medically used in Japan, which they're very strict. So to be able to use something medically at a major university hospital, this is the real deal. And so it's been remarkable, though I've been modifying the protocols. So I took their technology and I didn't alter the tech. I just created different protocols on how to use it. And my protocols ended up being actually studied, and they proved that my protocol works better than any hydrogen protocol ever done. And so that was really remarkable too. So I really kind of taken this whole thing and I ran with it, and it's been helping a ton of people. It's just been unbelievable. It's really, truly hard to believe.
So I'm going to take you back again. So you're lying there on the sofa. You can't change the channel. You can't play the computer games. How did you start the studying process? Like, what did you do first? Meet Amir, a 42-year-old professional who struggled with acne for 30 years. Overweight and lacking energy, he spent £400 every month on products trying to cover up his acne. His skin was oily, his face and scalp were covered in breakouts, and he worried about how this might affect his work. After testing his gut microbiome, we discovered imbalances, including Staphylococcus aureus, hormone issues affecting his energy, and food sensitivities that likely contributed to his acne. Initially, Amir struggled to commit to the program, but after a candid heart-to-heart, he stepped up. With diet changes, lifestyle adjustments, and targeted supplements, Amir finally saw progress. Within weeks, his skin cleared for the first time in 30 years. His energy returned and his confidence soared. If you're ready to transform your skin and reclaim your confidence like Amir, visit www.eliminateadultacne.com and request your acne breakthrough call today.
Just reading online. I was trying to look. I was looking up all sorts of different scientific studies for health. Whether it was some new medicine, some new pharmaceutical, whether it was some new supplement maybe or nutrient. And I learned a lot of things about health. It wasn't just hydrogen. Hydrogen was one of the things, but after
Mm.
trying so many things, that's how I narrowed down my protocol. My protocol, it does involve overcoming all nutritional deficiencies. So that's a really big one because of the research I found about that. Of course, it involves making the cleanest water. So I had to learn every water filtration modality in existence and what it can and cannot do. And I figured it all out by, again, observing nature and then starting to look at scientific studies and laboratory studies. And then I definitely found out how to clean water to the highest degree. And that includes cleaning all parasites, pharmaceuticals, viruses, bacterias, fluorides. I mean, everything. In fact, again, just to show you that example, have you ever heard of something called PFAS?
Yes.
So PFAS is really, really there's more than one type. They're really nasty. And
Mm.
we know for a fact now that they cause cancer. It's literally an epidemic that a lot of people aren't talking about, not to mention microplastics. But if I were to just give you one of many examples, so you see here we have PFAS.
Mm.
There's two of them, PFOA and PFOS.
Hmm.
This is the level in the water when it was tested. This is after the process that I suggest. They're all zeros. It takes any of these things out. It just takes everything out. It's called carbon distillation. And the good news is that my techniques are not very expensive. So the one that the carbon distillers that I recommend, I know you're in the UK, so that's a problem because the one that I recommend what I use.
Mm.
So I always do a lot of research and I only use the best because I want the best for my health and my body. Because without health, I mean, your life will be ruined. Anybody who knows how bad it is to be extremely sick, you realize very quickly that your life is over. If you can't walk, if you're dependent on people, if it's draining your bank account, and if you're a ton of pain, it's a very difficult thing to have to go through. And I
Mm.
know a lot of people suffer from it, which is exactly why I do now what I do
Mm.
and trying to help people overcome their issues.
Yeah. So you started the process of, doing the research. I'm guessing you were probably doing some trial and error to start with, trying out different things.
A lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So how long did it take from the time that you started researching to the time where you kind of realized, you'd found hydrogen and that was potentially going to be, the thing that solved your problems really? Like, how long was that process?
It was years. I mean, it was years of reading material, trial and error of trying different techniques, and then eventually really, really narrowing it down. Just it's like creating a samurai sword. All the work that goes into it, it's a process. And it took a really long time, but it took many years before I really figured it out
Mm.
because, there really wasn't a lot. I wasn't getting a ton of benefit from all the different things that I was trying. And I was
Mm.
getting kind of frustrated. But, I figured out the really big keys. And the biggest, simplest one, I mean, this is a really good example too. I remember my dad was always a funny example because he didn't want to change anything in his life. He didn't want to change his diet. He didn't want to change the way that he lives. He just was like, look. And he had all these issues. Like I said, I mentioned, those issues that he had, the arthritis. He was actually, diabetic. I mean, technically he was what they call pre-diabetic, but depending on the numbers, a lot of people don't know this. Different countries use different numbers. So in Japan, he would have been considered diabetic,
Mm.
but in America, he was considered pre-diabetic. So it's kind of funny. I learned a lot of this stuff, obviously, doing my research. But with all the arthritis, the diabetes, cholesterol issues, some blood pressure issues, and his glaucoma, the only thing he was willing to try, because it was not very hard, he didn't want to do anything that was difficult. So he said, "Look, I will drink the cleanest water in the world." So I bought him a carbon distiller, and he said, "And I'm willing to do that hydrogen stuff because it's really easy." And he said, "But that's it." And I remember being skeptical, thinking, I'm not sure this is going to work if that's the only things that you do. But that's when I really saw the real power of hydrogen because all his issues went away. And he got off the pharmaceuticals. His eye doctor was blown away, by the way, because he had had glaucoma for over 3 decades. I mean, over 30 years of glaucoma. He went always to the same eye doctor, and they knew he had glaucoma. And the last time they checked him, they were like, "You don't have glaucoma anymore." I mean, this is insane. It was so insane that even the doctor didn't believe it. He said, "I know you have it. You've been coming here for years. Come back. We're going to retest you." They had him back like 3 times. And every time he's tested negative, and they just couldn't understand it. So he ended up getting it took a long time. It took like half a year for him to get an appointment with like one of the number one specialists in the United States. They checked his eyes differently. They looked in deeper because they were concerned that if he had the glaucoma and they weren't treating it, that he was going to go blind.
Mm.
And so, sure enough, even the specialist was like, "I can't believe, like, I don't know what to tell you because this is unbelievable. You don't get older and your medical conditions go away. It's actually you get older and you get more medical issues." And that particular doctor had told my father that it just didn't make any sense. But yeah, his eyes were, obviously he didn't have the glaucoma anymore. So it was really, really unbelievable. And when I saw that, I mean, even my mom, she was a skeptic about all this stuff I was doing. She's like, well, you're trying to clean the water, you're doing this hydrogen stuff. She didn't understand it, but now she's a huge believer. I had some really good results for her also. And she's like, "I can't live without hydrogen now." I mean, she said it makes her feel, I mean, it also makes you feel really good, just so you know.
Mm.
One of the very first studies was on mitochondria. So it's really good for like energy. I've seen a lot of people like lose weight, reestablish their metabolism. It has very powerful anti-aging properties to it. I could, tell you about a study that was done in Japan about anti-aging. It's really good for the skin, what it does, quote unquote, for the collagen. Just on and on it goes. I have videos. I share everything for free, on my YouTube channel. And I've even had doctors, like there's a video 68, which is a live blood analysis. I show a lot of good data from Japan. I literally remember this doctor contacted me because she saw the video and she said, "That's impossible." She said, "What you're showing there is a scam. This can't be real." And I said, "Lady, this is coming from a laboratory, a very legitimate laboratory in Japan. And they're using the equipment that I decided to start using because I had tried a lot of different hydrogen machines and hydrogen tablets and just kind of garbage stuff, kind of like I was showing you these little bottles, like they weren't working." And when I finally got the right equipment, that's when everything changed. In fact, that's when my heart condition went away. My cardiologist was blown away by that too. I mean, I had a very severe heart condition that I was told was going to end my life. That was probably going to be the thing to kill me. And it was so severe. They're like, "You probably need to do open heart surgery. Your heart is a total mess, you know." And so, and that goes, I mean, sadly, I probably created that heart issue. It's really kind of a long story, but I did some things to my body in my youth that were really bad. And I'm not proud of them or anything. I'm not happy about it, but that's the truth. And unfortunately, I was poisoning myself a lot in my youth. And because I was under a lot of depression and stress, a lot of things happened to me from around the age of 8. And so I kind of believe that a lot of these poisons, and then eventually I OD'd, overdosed. And I think that's a lot of what caused a lot of the medical issues that I had. But the OD one was the one that I believe damaged my heart because there was a doctor who I was found on the bathroom floor after I had overdosed. And even, I won't go into all the details of that, I guess, but when I was taken to the hospital, the doctor said it was impossible that I survived. They said it was a true miracle. They said this was it. My heart literally should have exploded. That's what the doctor literally told me. And I do think it caused damage to my heart because I literally found out a month later that that there was something wrong. And I'd never had heart issues before that. So I think
Mm.
that's how it all got started. And the fact that all this was able to be turned around is just unbelievable.
Mm. So, how is your health right now? Amanda spent 19 years battling severe IBS, diarrhea, and abdominal pain. Her life was ruled by public toilets, and she avoided holidays for fear of flare ups. Doctors offered no solutions, just endless Imodium. After working together, Amanda discovered the root causes of her symptoms, and in just 3 months, she was IBS free. She even booked her first holiday with her husband, a dream come true. If you're struggling like Amanda, visit www.bodycheck.co.uk to schedule your consultation. Let's find the root cause and get your life back.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, it's excellent. I mean, I got actually, so I was doing a lot of blood work to make sure that these techniques that I was doing were actually working. And I actually had a doctor call me. She's a blood specialist. And in Western medicine, for those who work in the field, we you don't get a phone call unless there's a problem. So when I got the phone call, I was really concerned. I was like, "Oh my God, why are you calling? What did you find?" And she just said, "Just relax. I just want you to calm down." And I was like, "Well, just tell me, what did you find?" And she said, "The only reason I'm calling you is because I've been doing this for over 30 years. I'm a blood specialist. And in all my years of doing this," she said, "I've never in my life seen blood like yours." She goes, "Never. This is so incredible." She said, "I had to call you." She said, "I literally had to call you. And I wanted to know what you're doing. Is there some supplement you're taking, or what exactly are you doing?" Because, and then she opened up to me, her daughter has some medical issues. She also had her own medical issues. I have worked with so many doctors and naturopaths that contact me for help that will admit to me in private, of course, that they have so many issues or family members that they just they can't fix these people. And people who have seen either results that I provided for some of their patients, like for example, I just did a video a couple weeks ago. This poor girl had had a stroke. She couldn't walk, she couldn't talk, and she couldn't dress herself. And doctors had been working with her for almost 2 years. And they were just giving up on her. They're like, "There's nothing we can do. You had a stroke. You're all screwed up. There's no fixing you." And somebody heard about me, and she did my protocol, and she is now walking, talking, and dressing herself. And I actually got an email from her mother, and it's actually really a heartfelt email, because almost thinking about it like brings me to tears, because she said, "You gave me my daughter back." This had
Mm,
happened to her daughter. And I'm not going to say what exactly happened to maybe cause this stroke, but the point is that, her mother was very grateful because her daughter's life was over. She was just stuck in a chair all the time,
mm,
and she was drooling, and it was really sad. And that's what I mean about these medical problems that people have. This is so unbelievable. So, I mean, I'm very grateful even that you have me on your show, because the world's not going to find out about this unless we talk about it. Like, this
mm,
is something that is kind of obscure, and people don't really know about the holy hydrogen machine, and what this guy did, and the help he got from huge Japanese companies and engineers, the technology forefront of all this. It's really unbelievable.
mm. Yeah, that's really great when you can hear a story like that. Someone's in a really bad way, and whatever it is they do, and now their life's so much better again. It's always great to hear those stories, and that's why I'm in this industry to try and help create as many of those stories as I can. But just getting back to the kind of main theme of this episode, how would you define what molecular hydrogen is?
Well, it's just a gas. So basically, oxygen is a gas also, right? Molecular hydrogen is another gas. And, ironically, I've learned a lot about oxygen, and I know a lot of people are really fond of it, and that's great. We breathe in, I mean, there's a lot of oxygen in our atmosphere. I mean, we're breathing about 21% oxygen right now, but we get virtually no hydrogen. And hydrogen's produced in the body, where oxygen is coming from the outside of the body. But oxygen is very oxidizing. So, there are limits to what oxygen can really do. It actually can be very bad for you and very dangerous for you, very toxic. It's one of the reasons that, like in deep sea diving, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but when you go deep sea diving, they have to remove almost all the oxygen out of the tanks, because it would literally poison you. um, Oxygen is that toxic. So you have to be really cautious about oxygen therapies. A lot of people have done them incorrectly. But hydrogen is actually the purest substance known to man. There's a lot of spiritual aspects to it, which kind of shocked me throughout my learning process of hydrogen. It has everything to do with water. In fact, the origins of the word hydrogen actually means that which becomes water. And then water, water is all over ancient scriptures. Obviously, there's a ton of science to it. It's really something so remarkable. And I became a huge fan. I mean, I see water and hydrogen, and I believe in ways that almost nobody does. It is
Mm,
so beautiful. It is so alive. And that's the key to, in my personal opinion, to overcoming a lot of medical issues, is figuring out how to bring this life and even light into the body, because that's what I believe hydrogen actually is. If you look at the light of the world, which comes from the sun, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the sun is made up of pretty much entirely hydrogen. And some people may argue and say, well, it's also partially made of helium. What do you think helium is? Helium is actually a form of hydrogen. So it's really pretty unbelievable and absolutely remarkable. I'm very much in love with both hydrogen and water and what it can do for our physical health, our mental health, athletics. I also believe it can change the world of agriculture and even medicine. I can't name the medicines because I don't want to get your channel in trouble, but there are certain medicines that were transformed by hydrogen that they don't want us talking about a lot these days.
Mm, yeah, I can.
It starts with an I. I'll just say that, and it probably rhymes like with iserectin or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
that medicine was actually developed by the Japanese. A lot of people are unaware of that.
Mm,
And it wasn't just developed by the Japanese, it was actually transformed. Originally, it was something called ivermectin, and then it was transformed by hydrogen to become what we know it as today. And it's an
mm,
amazing anti-parasitic, and it's not the only one that I use. I also developed certain anti-parasitic protocols. I believe the parasites are also a culprit for a lot of different issues. So that's why my protocols involved, some diet, some antiparasitics, clean water, and hydrogen, and they really come together beautifully, and they really work. It's
mm.
unreal.
Yeah, yeah, that's really interesting.
At least I've seen them work a lot. I got to be cautious. I'm not making any claims. So when I
Yeah,
say it works, I mean I've seen it
yeah,
work.
yeah,
That's
yeah, gotcha. So, as I talk a lot about the gut microbiome and skin health on this show. What have you seen in terms of the benefits of hydrogen rich water when it comes to the gut microbiome and the skin?
so for the gut microbiome, it is unbelievable, like truly unreal what hydrogen really appears to be able to do for the gut. From leaky gut issues to IBS to Crohn's disease to celiac disease. I've worked with a lot of these people. In fact, I mean, just taking one example, I remember this woman had spent over $170,000 in going to numerous different doctors, numerous different medicines, numerous different supplements, different machines, all sorts of different stuff. This poor woman. And this one, she had celiac disease. And so she found me. She said, I'm desperate. I'll try anything. I put her on my protocol and her issues went away. She actually contacted me. It took 6 months. She got back to me. And I remember she was so excited. She just said, I can't believe the way that I feel now. And I have no issues with my gut. But unbelievable for the gut. But again, there's different ways to use hydrogen. So that would be more of a hydrogen water protocol because there's also hydrogen gas inhalation. So it kind of depends which mode you use. But for the gut, I mean, I like the combination, but hydrogen water is foundational. So we're using water as a carrier for the gas. Kind of like if you think of soda pop, it has carbonation, it has CO2.
Mm,
So that's a gas that is dissolved into that liquid or the water. And so hydrogen gas is kind of similar. You're dissolving this gas into water, which, by the way, nature, again, we are designed to do these type of things. Just look at your blood. You have an oxygen saturation. So you have a gas that is saturated in your blood, which is like water. So this really just fits so perfectly, within nature and the way things work.
mm. So you mentioned celiac disease, the hydrogen rich water managed to help someone with celiac disease. Do you have any other examples of gut health issues? Did you know that 92% of people fail to follow through on their New Year's resolutions? That's right. Year after year, most of us start strong and then lose momentum by February. Sound familiar? But what if this year could be different? What if you finally had the tools to make your goals stick? Introducing Stickability, a simple, effective, and affordable program designed to help you overcome the cycle of failed resolutions. In just a short time, you'll learn how to create lasting habits without wasting hours or breaking the bank. This isn't just another plan. It's the solution to finally sticking to your healthy lifestyle goals. Don't let this year be like the last. Head over to stickabilitycourse.com now to enroll. It's affordable, easy to follow, and packed with tools to make 2025 the year that you have the ability to make it stick.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with a lot of people with also Crohn's disease. I've worked with a lot of people also with autoimmune issues, which is
Mm,
something that I even suffered from.
mm,
And I believe that the autoimmune issues are actually correlated and linked to your gut. So
mm,
that's another big one. In
yeah,
fact, I'm a little surprised how much it's helped people with mental health.
mm,
And I've been realizing the connection between the gut and the mind, the
mm,
brain
yeah,
and mental health. And there's so much garbage, whether it's, pollution in our food that disrupts the gut microbiome.
yeah,
The highest level of microplastics are in water. That's why I show people how to filter their water, so that they can have clean water, because that's also going to help. And like I said, even a lot of people with IBS, there was actually a woman that I worked with. She had so many issues with her gut. Her doctors, this is kind of weird because they're telling her that she had a twisted intestine where things really were having a hard time getting through. It was causing a lot of pain. And they were recommending surgery for this woman. Totally solved the issue, no surgery needed. So a lot of examples,
mm,
a lot of examples, and a lot of skin ones too. In fact, I just released a video, I believe it was about 3 weeks ago. This particular person had a skin condition that was so severe, and I say caution to your viewers because you can go watch the video, but I show the pictures and they're gruesome. I mean, this poor person was suffering from a very bad skin disorder,
mm,
and she'd been working with dermatologists and no results. They just were not being able to help this person. And again, they did a protocol that I created because I was actually working with, there's a healing center, and the guy who runs it contacted me and he found out about me and he said, "Can you please share your protocols? Because I've been using hydrogen in my clinic and it's not working." He was using a machine, I think it was called an Axiom or something, but it just really wasn't doing much. And the problem is because the way you make hydrogen really matters. And also the way you use it really matters. And so he wanted some suggestions or advice. We had a long conversation and they actually started applying my protocols to this person. And their condition was gone in less than a week. It was
mm,
unbelievable. They said that the doctors, when they saw the results, they couldn't believe it. They literally said it was a miracle. And now he's having doctors visiting his clinic. They're trying to find out what my protocols are. So that's been happening a lot because I've been doing this for like a decade. So there are physicians that see results for their patients. They're the ones that contact me the most.
mm. Do you know what skin condition that was?
No, all I know is that it seemed to be, I mean, you'd have to look at the pictures. It looked very like infected. Antibiotics weren't working. They weren't sure if there was some type of like flesh-eating bacteria. I never got a name for the condition. I only
Mm,
got pictures. It didn't even seem like the doctors gave it a name. They didn't really know what was happening.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it makes complete sense to me that anything that can help with the gut is going to help the skin, right? Because your skin does the same thing as your gastrointestinal tract. It just happens to be on the outside, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's the largest organ of the human body.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it is very important. And when I was doing my protocols, I wasn't doing any of my protocols thinking my acne would go away or that my skin would look better. But when they did, I was shocked. I still remember because I used to get acne all over my back and I'd
Mm,
have it all over my face and my shoulders and just different places. And I hated it. I
mm,
hated having all that. And when it was just gone, my skin was smooth and it felt really good. It was really pleasant and really nice. And I was so happy. And I had also gone to a lot of dermatologists in my youth, for the acne kind of stuff. And I mean, honestly, I can resolve almost anybody's skin issue. As far as acne, that's easy. It's so easy to fix acne. And then a lot of other skin disorders. In fact, there's another example I just remembered. There was a guy for his wife. She has one of those skin disorders where she has like dark spots and like really white spots. You know what I mean?
um, like vitiligo, is it?
Yeah, I think that's actually the condition, what it
Yeah.
was. That's right. And so nothing was fixing that. And it was actually getting worse. And she was very embarrassed by it. And her husband found me and he said, "Do you think these protocols would work for, vitiligo or vitiligo or, depending on different people pronounce it differently?" And I was kind of telling her, I mean, I had seen a few things, but not a lot throughout many years. So she tried it. I just talked to him like, I think it was a week or two ago. And he said, dude, it's unbelievable. It's almost gone. He said, it's so much better. And it's almost completely gone. I think it's like 90% gone. So that was really unbelievable. So, I mean, I was pretty shocked about that one. I wasn't sure if that one would actually work. And it did again. So it just keeps blowing my mind. This technology it just blows my mind. It's so
Mm.
hard it's hard to believe though. But the good
Yeah.
news is we have a lot of, we have a lot of data. So
Yeah. So one of the things that you mentioned the machine. So can you talk a little bit about the machines and devices that are out there, and what have you found to be the best ones? What ones do you recommend?
So the first thing I'll say is like, if you ever look at any machine, like first of all, hydrogen tablets are kind of a big one. I highly do not recommend those. I've seen some lab reports, and yeah, I'm just not a fan. So I don't like hydrogen tablets. Cheap little hydrogen products like these type of things, I'm not a fan at all. In fact, always look where they're made because I have not seen anything good come from China in regards to hydrogen machines. I've also seen machines that use like anything that uses stainless steel or something called lye, otherwise known as sodium hydroxide. Again, stay away from that. Even something they call Brown's gas. It just doesn't. It's a little bit more on the. There's really not a ton of science on Brown's gas. The real science is on molecular hydrogen. So I wouldn't get anything with plated metals either. Basically, if people want to know the best I've ever found in the world of hydrogen, if there was like 10 machines that I could recommend, I would gladly do that. What shocked me about the whole hydrogen world is that nobody's really investing a lot of money in it. So China makes these, in my opinion, just kind of lackluster quality products. And it was the Japanese, specifically this one gentleman, the company, the holyhydrogen.com company, they really are engineers and specifically designed the machine based on the scientific studies. That's actually how I found them because I was going off the data. I wasn't going off of people's opinions anymore. I was done with listening to people's opinions. I was going off of data in order to find the information that I was really looking for. And that data led me to this device. And then I felt kind of stupid because here I'm following all this data, a lot of work, only to arrive to the number one hydrogen company in all of Japan. They have the best hydrogen machine in the world. I'm like, I should have known. I should have just looked for number one because in Japan, when something rises to the top, it's typically because of the quality of what they're building, not because of like who or corruption. In
Mm.
Japanese culture, a lot of people always say, what's the best? That's typically the way that it goes in Japan. And so I found that machine. Of course, I contacted the company and I was asking a lot of questions. That's how I learned I learned a lot, even from them, because they were absolute experts and so much, again, engineers and scientists. And so, yeah, they developed the best. I mean, the thing that I have to say about hydrogen, I'm actually concerned about when you do it incorrectly, because again, just to use this as an example, this is using plated metal. So I don't know if you understand plated metal, but I mean, when you're plating metal and then you're running electricity through it with water, I mean, what do you think's going to happen? Just ask, AI. I've done some videos where I asked AI and it talks about, cheap metals and concerns about maybe heavy metal toxicity or something, just different concerns that AI spoke about. The Japanese are the only company, and this is crazy. This shouldn't be this way. There's hundreds, if not thousands of hydrogen machines and supplements out there. But only this one company does not use plated metals, does not use cheap stainless steel. They use super expensive, super high purity metals that even the technology to do it, there's only one company in the world that could even do it. Even the metal's structured a certain way to make optimal hydrogen. It's really unbelievable what they've done. So it really does matter. Same thing for water filters. Not all water filters are created equal. I actually have had labs, like laboratories, who've contacted me that are water specialists. So that's been really interesting because I've learned that a lot of water filters have actually contaminated water. That probably sounds crazy, right?
Mm.
But they literally take a lab test of the water, and after it runs through the filter, and then there's certain contaminants in the water. They're actually coming from these filters because the filters come from China a lot of times. That's where they're making a lot of these products. And so that's why I recommend what's called carbon distillation, because the distillation process is such a beautiful thing from nature. I mean, do you know how nature cleans water? You know how that's happened, Lee?
No.
So it actually starts with hydrogen. So it starts with the sun, and the sun hits the ocean. It gets hot, the steam begins to rise. And through this ascension of the water or the rising water, and water is very spiritual, by the way, in my opinion. There's a reason that, like, Jesus got baptized in water, for example. But anyway, the ascension process of the water actually purifies the water. So I remember finding these old ancient scriptures that literally say things like pure as the driven snow, pure as white as snow. People don't actually realize that snow is distilled water. So is rain. And so then I thought, well, this is interesting. So I started looking into the lab reports on all these different water and filtration devices and what they can do. And that's when I found out that the combination of distillation with carbon makes your water as good as you're going to get it. It's super clean. And that's what I started using. And there's people out there who say, hey, you shouldn't drink that kind of water. I didn't listen to anybody anymore. I listened to my logic, and my logic said, what do you want out of your water? And to me, I was thinking, I just want it to be clean. Like,
Mm.
I don't care what pH it is. I don't care where it comes from. I just want it to be super clean. And then I realized that I could do that with any water as long as I had a carbon distiller. And of course, I did a lot of research on that. If people want to know what I use, it's a website called mypurewater.com. And if people like discounts, I don't think anybody will be ordering it because you're in the UK, but the discount code for it's Uprising 144K, which is the same name as my YouTube channel. But yeah, that's what I use also for purifying my water. And the quality is the same every time. People don't realize that water filters typically are porous. So that means that as water goes through it, the filter is actually getting dirtier, and the quality of your water is always going like this. It's always getting worse. With
Mm.
every 100 gallons that you're filtering, your quality is getting worse. That's why then eventually you have to change the filter. But water companies are sneaky, Lee. So what they do is they'll show you, oh, we lab tested our water, but they test it with a brand new filter.
Mm.
So if they tell you to change the filter after 5,000 gallons, they never tested the water again after 1,000 gallons and 2,000 and 3,000 and 4,000. And so there's a lot to learn. There's a lot of shenanigans and sneaky stuff going on out there. And I had to learn all the little tricks in order to figure out, what companies are really on your side and what product you maybe really need, but clean water is foundational for human
Mm.
health. And by the way, this is important for parents. One of the other things that I learned, and I think this is very important. Do you know who the most susceptible is to contaminated water?
Children, babies.
Yeah. And that's what's so sad because, their organs aren't fully developed. So their kidneys, their liver, their brains, their gut, they're not fully developed. And so contaminants in water affect them more. And we've seen a huge spike in mental health issues with kids, super high suicide rates. They're unhappy for many reasons, but I think that, and their health has suffered like never before. And I think it's very important to always give your kids very clean water. In fact, I've had some clients actually too, like a woman who had two children. And then on her third child, she found out about me and she wanted to do the cleanest water with the hydrogen. And the results were unbelievably, like, she wrote me a testimonial too. Truly unreal what I believe it can do for pregnancy and healthy children. And I believe that in order to have a healthy and happy world, we need happy kids. I mean,
Mm.
that's just my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, what do you think that everyone needs to know that's interested in trying hydrogen therapy or drinking the water or inhaling? What would be the main things that people need to know and understand?
Well, the first thing I'll say, just because it'll save you heartache and money, is if you're going to do it, just do it right. Like, there is no cutting corners. If you want to if you want to clean your water properly, I talked about carbon distillation. I'm sure there's other companies, by the way, that make good carbon distillers. It's just the one that I recommend is American made. They're better than the Chinese stuff I've found, but it doesn't require like super high tech to distill water. As far as hydrogen generators, that's a whole other thing. It is way more complex. In my opinion, just don't do it unless you're going to do it right. I have concerns about causing problems. I've actually seen it. And from some lab reports, I can see why that happens now. That's why I don't suggest anything that uses lye or stainless steel or even hydrogen tablets or any of this stuff. I only recommend something that makes super high quality hydrogen gas and obviously the water. And the only company that I recommend for hydrogen is the Holy Hydrogen Company. There are two other companies that make pretty decent devices. They're also both Japanese, but one of the companies was having their parts made in China, so that was a problem. And also, they were actually more expensive and not as good. And one of them only did the gas, so you could only breathe it in, you couldn't make the water. The other machine only made the water and not the gas. So the one that I recommend does both of them, and it's cheaper anyway and much more reliable. That's been another big problem that I've seen in the hydrogen world that nobody talks about is lack of reliability, because it's very tricky to make those type of those devices and that equipment reliable.
Mm.
So, and I don't recommend, by the way. Have you ever heard of the whole Kangen machine or all those
Yeah.
alkaline waters?
Yeah.
That's actually a big problem because the reason that it confused everybody is because if you look at short-term data, it looked good. In fact, I tried it and it definitely didn't work for me, but it actually causes some issues that I ended up learning about later. So the Japanese saw benefit in the short term, but whenever you look at scientific data, you need to look at both the short term and the long term. Because, for example, fasting. Fasting in the short term, you see a lot of benefits. If you go really long fasting, I mean, you're going to die. You can become very deficient. You can become very sick. You need to know how to do it properly. And so the Kangen machines kept talking about, oh, it's alkaline water. Alkaline water will solve all your problems. The problem is that if you wanted alkaline water, you could just put baking soda and water. Voila, you got alkaline water. It really wasn't the alkalinity. The machines were by accident making some hydrogen. And that's why they were showing the benefit in the short term. The problem is the machines aren't really designed to be hydrogen generators. So in the long term, they literally stop making hydrogen typically within 3 months or less, and you don't even know it. But it was the alkalinity that was the problem. Your stomach is actually designed to be acidic.
Mm.
It's designed to be acidic because that kills pathogens and helps break down the food so that you actually can absorb the nutrients properly.
Yeah.
And so this artificial alkalinization that they were doing through the process of ionization was disrupting the stomach acids in the long term. I've talked to so many people who've had gut issues from using those for the long term, and they never knew that it was
Mm.
these alkaline waters from these type of devices. So, like I said, it's really important to do it correctly.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. So, Greg, what's next for you? What have you got coming up?
Well, uh, that one I'm working on. So once you start clearing the body and getting it healthy and running on all cylinders, and even your brain starts functioning even way better. I actually have, there's no science yet, but there's some preliminary data. I believe that hydrogen actually can increase intelligence and just cognitive function in general. And I actually want to develop a piece of equipment, but I need all the right connections because it's going to be expensive. I mean, we're talking like 30 to $50 million. But this particular piece of equipment, I believe, based on a lot of data already that I've gathered, I believe it'll be able to resolve almost any medical issue in existence. But I think even bigger than that is I think it can actually prolong life by a lot. I think we could live hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, if not even going into the thousands of years. And I know that's a very bold statement, but the stuff that I've been uncovering about the body and just how it really works, you really begin to find out little interesting secrets. And then that's when I realized, oh my God, I think we could live a very long time. There's a reason that we age so fast. There's a reason that we're dying so young. We're not supposed to die at this age, by the way. We're not supposed to die. I mean, you're lucky to make it to 100 these days,
Mm.
right? And to me, 100 is nothing. Like, we should be able to live way longer than that. And even ancient scriptures used to say, like, for example, the Bible, used to say that we used to live, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. It wasn't, until certain things happened according to the Bible that, our life expectancy shortened to no more than 120 something years. And if you really look at the science, it's really interesting because that ancient book that said 120 something years, that's extremely accurate because nobody's going to make, I mean, I'd be willing to bet a very large sum of money if I had it, that nobody will make it past 129 years old. Nobody, because there's something in the body that's keeping us. It's like a governor on a car, from living longer. And I believe that I might have cracked the code on how to overcome that. But obviously, I need a lot of help,
Mm.
from engineers and scientists and funding. I did already talk to a UCLA doctor / scientist about it. And he actually was pretty shocked at my hypothesis. He said, "I think this actually might work." He couldn't believe it. And he said, I don't know how you came up with this, but it's going to take funding is the problem.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
maybe someday.
Yeah. Well, good luck. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
And where can people find you online, Greg?
Yeah. So if anybody wants to support what I do, literally for free, you can go to YouTube. So YouTube, my channel is called Uprising 144K. Everything is free. I don't charge for memberships, for secret videos. Everything's free. But it's really good to also go to Rumble, to go to Twitter, otherwise known as X, and Instagram, and just subscribe there, because my channel, I have been threatened a lot, which is one of the reasons that I'm very cautious about the way I speak now. So if anything ever happens to this information, the only way you're going to find me again is if you're following me like on Twitter or Instagram or something, because I'll open up a new channel and start all over.
Great. So, yeah, if you can send me any details of any links you want me to share on the show notes, then please do. And even some of the equipment that you've mentioned, about 50% of my audience is in the US anyway. So,
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So feel free to send me any links, and I'll make sure they're in the show notes.
Oh, okay. And I guess I should provide my email then too, because and I'm very selective in how I do this, but I do consults because obviously I help people.
Mm-hmm.
And so if people want to contact me, my email is uprising144k@gmail.com. And then if you can send me an email so I can reply to yours and send you those links, that would be great too.
Awesome. Great stuff. Greg, thank you so much for your time today. It's been really interesting. Hydrogen water is something that I've kind of known about, and something in the back of my head kind of said, it's just a fad. Maybe it's a scam. And so when you reached out to me, I thought, yeah, actually, I want to know a bit more about this. So, yeah, thanks for your time, and thanks for sharing your knowledge. And I'm really glad, you've managed to turn your own health around as well. That's, and other people as well. That's really great to hear.
Yeah, I don't know if there's too many greater gifts than that, to give people their life back. It fills my heart with so much joy, and I'm very grateful for it. So,
Yeah.
and thank you again for having me on, and I hope you found it interesting.
Yeah, it's been great having you on. So that's all from Greg and me for this week. But don't forget to join me same time, same place next week on the Radical Health Rebel podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to give the show a rating and a review, and I'll see you next time.